Myoho Renge Kyo. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hi, how are you today? I hope you're in good health, secure. We're going to continue with TienTai from Buddhism Reference, available on lulu.com, perhaps should be available on Amazon by now. Also available as an ebook. Post-Tang Crisis and Song Revival. Huiqing Temple. There's a photograph, a panorama of Tien-Tai Mountain. You can look that up on Google. After Zanran, the pupil of Tien-Tai, or GE, who took over, Tien-Tai declined once again. So this is a history of really all things, but certainly in Buddhism, there would be strong leaders who were very close to the teachings of the master, ZE, or other schools. Same thing happened with Nagarjuna. Every scholar in the history of Buddhism has presented clarity to the teachings that a lot of people, practitioners, students, monks, had a hard time with. I don't know why it is, human nature perhaps, because of our samsaric distractions. We tend to want to satisfy our skandhas, our lower consciousnesses, before we want to satisfy or make the effort to live in our ninth consciousness, our most developed, our most fully expressed karmic reality, yeah? It takes effort. It takes effort to live in the moment of the flow of energy, of the engine of life, right? Not living in the moment, because that rhetoric suggests the moment is a place or thing that is to be experienced. It's not. It's a stream. It's a flow. We're trying to observe that flow as we're in it. This is enlightenment, yes? This is the past and future become irrelevant because it's all happening in the flow. But so the history of things is what? A story of the past. But what happens is this natural inborn laziness, because holding on to the past makes us neglect the effort of being in the flow, so we're lazy. The teachings start to get less focus on the important issues and more on ritual and whatever, politics, one-upmanship, blah, blah, blah. And this happens repeatedly over the history of anything, but certainly in Buddhism, but we identify it, yes? Nichiren is our great scholar of our modern times, giving us the tools to recognize, and the tools to bypass, this is what the mandala is for. The mandala is to give us a concrete, satisfy those skandhas tool that redirects us again to our Gohanzon mind, our Buddha-ness, our ninth consciousness. Really brilliant, for an era of peoples that are constantly in the grips of distraction. Certainly we are. To have a tool to distract us from the distractions is really an elegant solution, yeah? All right. So Brooke Zipporn writes that this period has been seen as the second dark age of Tien-Tai, a state of crisis extending from the Tang dynasty into the 5 dynasties and northern Song dynasty, an age marked internally by the deterioration of distinctive TienTai ideas and marked externally by the loss of crucial texts and monastic institutions, especially after the persecution of 845, a period that saw the increased influence of Chan, or Zen, right? Which is not really Buddhism. It has Buddhism foundings, but then Dogen comes along and adds his own texts outright, right? It's a text outside of Buddhist scholarship, Zen is. But no argument with Zen practitioners. It's a fruitless argument. So, during this period, Huayan and Chan influences made strong inroads into TienTai thought. Zhanran's disciples and seventh patriarch Dao Sui and syncretic figures such as Ji Xuan and Dochang Ningfen all combined TienTai with Chan ideas, particularly of the Heze school. Duosui is important because he was the primary teacher of Saicho. Remember that name, Saicho? Dengyo, the Japanese founder of the TienTai sect in Japan? The founder of the Japanese TienTai tradition, known in Japanese as TienTai. Other TienTai syncretists include Deshao, who was associated with the Faiyan branch of Chan, and his student Yongming Yenshao, who attempted to unify TienTai, Huayan, and Yogacara teachings under a kind of idealism influenced by Zhongmi, emphasizing what he called the one pure, formless mind. This situation led to the famous debate within the TienTai school known as the home mountain versus off mountain debate. Off mountain supporters, as they were later polemically termed, supported these new doctrines, such as the one pure mind, claiming that they were originally TienTai doctrines, while just revisionist historians, people who insert their views into past histories like they even existed then. We have that problem today. It's all over politics. How to sway people's opinions, by feeding them a load of nonsense. While home mountain supporters saw the original TienTai view as different and superior to this new view influenced by Chan and Huayan doctrines, especially Zhongmin's works. The most eminent figure during this debate was Patriarch Siming Zhili, from 960 to 1028, who wrote various commentaries on Zhiyi's works and defended the home mountain view. Zhili major criticisms included attacking Chan's failure to understand the necessity of the use of words and scriptural study as part of practice, as well as criticizing Zhongmi's view of a pure mind as the Buddha nature, arguing instead that the three truths, as taught by Ji, are the ultimate reality. For Zhili, mind or consciousness has no special status relative to other types of dharmas, such as physical matter. Over time, Zhili's home mountain view turned out to be victorious, and his works became part of the Orthodox TienTai canon during the Song dynasty. Ziyun Jushi was another important figure in the Second TienTai revival. His work focused on the promotion of rituals for lay Buddhists. and worked on converting the populace away from using blood, meat, and alcohol for funerary and ancestral rites. Qi also promoted the practice of adopting local Chinese deities and spirits into the Buddhist religion as vassals or retainers, and strongly promoted repentance rituals. That's good old religion, always has those, right? It's, you could say those are skillful means or devices to engage the historical traditions and folklore, because they're ready-made personages, but it's a very slippery slope, and I don't advise anyone to do that. Certainly Nichiren wouldn't. These two figures were also associated with the popularization of Pure Land practices through the foundation of lay societies, the Lotus societies, the Lianxie, Tien-Tai monk Mao Jihuan took this one step further by establishing what became known as the White Lotus Society, which allowed both men and women to attend together and even to preach and be in charge of society repentance halls as married clergy. So you can see rituals and traditions changing and shifting throughout this history of the clarifications of Buddhist teachings, right? Interesting ebb and flow of sorts. And again, just as a caveat, I'll apologize to the Chinese, as I'm trying my best to pronounce these names. If I falter, my apologies. Due to the efforts of these major Tien-Tai figures, the school became one of the dominant forms of Buddhism during the Song dynasty, alongside of the Chan, which remained popular, obviously. Yuan, Ming, and Qing. The Guangjing Temple on Tien-Tai Mountain, originally built in 598 during the Sui dynasty and renovated during the reign of the Qing Yongshan Emperor, 1722 to 35. The defeat of the Song dynasty was a serious blow to Tien-Tai, which suffered another setback during the Zhuan dynasty, which supported Tibetan Buddhism, while Chan Buddhism continued to grow in popularity while attacking the legitimacy of other schools. This period saw the Tien-Tai figure Huxi Huaize write his polemical treatise record of Tien-Tai's transmission of the Buddha's mind seal as an effort to defend the Tien-Tai tradition against Chan critiques. The Ming dynasty saw further religious revivals among the major Chinese Buddhist schools, including Tien-Tai, particularly under the reign of the Buddhist-friendly Wanli emperor. One of the main figures of the Ming Tien-Tai Buddhist revival is Miaofeng Zhenjue, who lectured widely and whose students revived ancestral Tien-Tai monasteries such as Gaoming and Aiwang. Yuxi Chuandeng, a student of Miaofeng, was also another important figure who wrote a work entitled On Nature, Including Good and Evil, which presents his ideas on doctrinal classification. The principle of nature inclusion and the practice of Dharma gate goes all the way back to Nagarjuna, yeah? Of inherent evil, attempting to harmonize these with Confucianism and the thought of the Surangama Sutra, which we've talked about on this channel. Chuandeng was also instrumental in rebuilding Gaoming Monastery, which had been abandoned by this time. Jianqi Shaodeng was one of the most influential teachers and exegetes of Tien-Tai during the Qing dynasty. All right, now let's get to the modern era. The most influential figure in modern TienTai, who carried the TienTai lineage, specifically the Liangfeng lineage, from the late Qing into the 20th century, was Dixian. His student, the monk Danzhi, is known for having rebuilt various temples during the Republican era, such as Zhangshan Temple in Qingdao, and for preserving the TienTai lineage into the PRC era, the People's Republic of China, right? During the Chinese Civil War, various Dharma heirs of Dijiang moved to Hong Kong, including Dan Chu and Baojing. They helped establish the TienTai tradition in Hong Kong, in Japan. In Hong Kong. There, where it remains a strong living tradition today, being preserved by their Dharma heirs. Baojing's Dharma heir, Jui Guang, helped establish the Guangzhong Temple in Hong Kong and transmitted the lineage to numerous monks from Korea, Indonesia, Singapore, Taiwan, and mainland China. Tang Xuan's heir, Yongxing, founded Shifang Temple in Hong Kong, as well as various temples in Malaysia and the United States, as well as the Texas Buddhist Association and its Jade Buddha Temple. Furthermore, other monks from this lineage have helped to reintroduce the TienTai tradition from Hong Kong back to the rest of mainland China, aiding in the reconstruction of Chinese Buddhism after the Reform and opening up period. The ancient Guangqing Temple at Mount TienTai, which had suffered from neglect and destruction, was renovated at the behest of Zhao Enlai. Guangqing Temple is now a major center of Chinese TienTai Buddhism, as well as remains a place of pilgrimage for Japanese TienTai Buddhists. There are many texts that came from Zhiyi and the TienTai tradition. The TienTai school takes the Lotus Sutra, Saddhamma Pundarika Sutra, as the main basis. The Mahaprajna Paramita Upadesa of Nagarjuna as the guide, and the Mahayana Mahaparinirvana Sutra as the support. And the, I'm not going to be able to say that one, Prajna Paramita Sutra, in 25,000 lines, for methods of contemplation. The book of the original acts that adorn the Bodhisattva, is also a key text. TienTai is often termed the Four Sutras, One Treatise school because of the strong influence of these texts on the tradition. So why did I include all of this in this book, you may ask, and I talked about this before, because this whole school and its changes, specifically all the way back to Zhiyi's writings, though, is a foundational source of Nichiren's thought for the first part of his life. The first half of his life his eyes were open through many of Zhiyi's documents, right? But extending his study beyond TienTai and looking at, the scholarship, Nichiren's scholarship is without question. He's researched and not only sutras but commentaries in other schools to find, like Zhiyi did, as an example, to sort the wheat from the chaff, if you will, yes? So Nichiren does a very complete investigation, and if you read or listen to the Go Show on this channel, you'll see readily how he constantly makes reference and challenge points, and even advises his delegates on how to approach debates on certain schools or subjects from other schools, right? So that the supremacy of the Lotus teaching remains strong and intact. Apart from these, other classic Mahayana sutras are also important in TienTai. The Avatamsaka Sutra is also very highly regarded in TienTai, as it is seen as one of the subtlest and deepest sutras, and to belong to the class of complete teachings. The Vimalakirti Sutra, which I've mentioned many, many times, is also seen as an important sutra in TienTai. Why do you think that would be? Because the Vimalakirti firmly places enlightenment here in the Saha world, in the sentient mind. There is no pure land separate from the land we are in. It is just a shift in our experience, our sentient experience of the same land. That's the Vimalakirti. It's also seen in an important sutra in TienTai. Ji wrote a commentary on this sutra, the Wimo Wiji. Indeed, the TienTai school study makes use of numerous sources, as noted by Donner and Stevenson, and I'll quote, "When we examine the early TienTai exegetical and textual record, we find that Ji and his successors compiled treatises for any number of sutras other than the Lotus, including such long-standing Chinese favorites as the Vimalakirti, the Nirvana, and the Suvamara Prabhasa, and various Pure Land sutras. Not only is there no evidence that one particular scripture was consistently promoted over others, but Tang period sources indicate that the spiritual descendants of Ji realigned TienTai doctrine freely in order to accommodate whatever sutra caught their fancy." That's a problematic, isn't it? TienTai treatises, in addition to its doctrinal basis in Indian Buddhist texts, the TienTai school also created its own meditation texts which emphasize the principles of samatha and vipassana. Of the TienTai meditation treatises, Ji's concise samatha vipassana, samatha vipassana, and 6 subtle Dharma gates are the most widely read in China. Renjun Wu identifies the work Mohe Ji Quan of Ji as the seminal meditation text of the TienTai school. And the Mohe Ji Quan, as you know, is based on the Lotus Sutra. The major TienTai treatises studied in the tradition are the following works of Ji. And once we get through this, let's see, we can go a little further. 1, the Mohe Ji Quan, the great calming and concentration, right? Nietzsche makes reference to that quite a lot. Read with Zhanran's commentary, Ji Quan Fuxing Xuan Hongjiu. Secondly, the Fa Hua Jikui, sounded French there, the profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra, which is a book that I have, which I've entertained reading on this channel before. Read with Zhanran's commentary, the Fa Hua Jingyi Shikian. And third, the Fa Ha Wenju, the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, another book which I own. Read with Zhanran's commentary, Fa Hua Wenju Ji. The 5 lesser TienTai treatises, which are also studied, the Guanyin Pusa Pumenpin Zhuangyi, the profound meaning of the universal gate of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva chapter, with Ji's own commentary, the Guanyin Pusa Pumenpin Yishu, the commentary on the universal gate of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva chapter, must be a different chapter, read with his commentary. Thirdly, the Jingguangming Jing Shuangji, the profound meaning of the Golden Light Sutra, which is one of the texts the Pure Land School used. Just because they share texts don't mean they believe the same things. So don't be confused by that. The Zhangguangming Jing Wenju, the words and phrases of the Golden Light Sutra, and the Guang Wuliang Xiaofu Jing Shu, the commentary on the Buddha of Immeasurable Life Sutra, right? That's Amida, right? But these are all teachings of using personages to explore certain aspects of the mind. Always remember, Buddhism is about the mind. So if something takes you off that track into some kind of other ritual or belief system, that's a derivation. That's not the meaning of the teaching itself, yes? Then, as far as philosophy, Ji, the foundational philosopher of the Tien-Tai school, David Chappelle, lists the most important Tien-Tai teachings as being the threefold truth and the corresponding threefold contemplation. The fourfold teaching, the subtle dharma, and the non-conceivable discernment, or the inconceivable mind. Brooke Zipporn writes that Tien-Tai's, quote, rigorous rhetorical edifice, end quote, uses, quote, modes of argumentation and praxis that are derived squarely from the Indian Buddhism, end quote, but applies these, quote, in the service of ideals and metaphysical conclusions that are rooted deeply in the indigenous philosophical traditions, end quote, of China, no doubt. The threefold truth. How much further do I want to go in this one? We've covered a lot of ground, but I just want you to know, see, we haven't even gotten to the 3,000 realms yet, which is a very important aspect of Tien-Tai, right? I'll go a little further. This kind of gets into the threefold truth. Yeah, let's leave that for next time. Hopefully you can see that there's a lot of information we can glean from the Tien-Tai school. Not that you should study Tien-Tai, but that if you really want to understand things like the 3,000 realms, yes, study Nichiren. Nichiren does an excellent job in the opening of the eyes, in his treatises on not just the opening of the eyes, but the object for concentration in the fifth 500-year period, so on and so forth. Take your time, read those, and if you need the backup, if you're that kind of a student, and at times I am, not always, but sometimes I really, questions will come in my mind that seem to necessitate my going down the rabbit hole, and so I will research these all the way as far back as I can to the origins of their thought. And oftentimes in that process, I'll see certain tangents that actually reflect more the doubts I'm having. And, this is how we want to be secure, resolved, and free of doubt. In other words, confident, right? Supremely confident that as we chant, we are opening that Gohonzon mind, opening that Buddha eye, and experiencing the process of life, the engine of life, contemporaneously as its momentum moves us inexorably, right? We want to observe the stream, as it were, of instantiations of potential, our own as well as all others. There's a certain kind of a hum about that, yeah? All right. Thanks for listening. Thank you for your practice. I appreciate you deeply, and all the modes of support. Everything from liking and subscribing, a Bodhisattva act, because it helps the teaching become more available to more people. That's what we're here for. And, of course, all of the other methods of keeping this channel alive. Visit the threefoldlotus.com website. Lots of free information there. Help yourself to downloading those documents as study aids for yourself and as teaching aids for others. Yeah. I've said it before, have a watch party. Invite a friend and watch some of these videos, or a particular video that you found particularly helpful, right? And then have a discussion, a little meeting, yeah? Yeah, that might just be a watch of the life of Nichiren, the Buddhist prophet, that old book that I've done a series of here. Many ways you can approach this for yourself and others, yeah? Yeah, get an ebook, get a print book, whatever you prefer. I'm trying to make more things available on Patreon. They just put together a way of, if you don't want to become a monthly member or donate through that or PayPal, you can go there directly. But on Patreon, they've allowed for, and I've created a few collections, like on YouTube you have playlists. On Patreon you have collections, and I've collected like Gosho or the TLK's Threefold Lotus Dharma Sutra lectures. There's something like 70 of them. And for a one-time purchase, you can download those. You can have those like a library, electronic library, yeah? So that way you can make a donation that truly helps keep this thing that I've got going, this resource that I've got going, and you have, permanent hold of these files to share, to watch on your own, not having to worry about internet connections and all of that. Anyway, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one, all right? And as always, bye for now.